Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our single player Let's Play series. Haven't really been doing all that much in between episodes. I did wait out the auto crafting process to get ourselves some heat conductors here. And we're just about ready to start building out this structure. Just to sort of give you an idea of the shape that we're looking for here. This might actually be... yeah, that's too big. There we go. That's the size we're going to be looking at here. So there's a reason that I didn't do the staircases, or make this area bigger. I didn't really see a need to come down here all that often. The staircase just comes down here so that we can right-click on it if ever we wanted to. But yeah, as you're building out this construct, which I'm going to start building it out. I'm not actually going to build the whole thing out here, just getting started. If you notice right-clicking on these crafting frames, like I want a pillar up, it's not going to let me. You may have to shift right-click. So if you ever run into that issue, that is essentially the root of your problem. And the reason I'm going to go ahead and start doing these components now is because we already have them. I'd like to clean up my inventory just a smidge. And I think more importantly than anything else, we already have the fundamentals for our core makeup here for the system. We just need a couple more things and then we will be good to go. And those things will be pretty easy to craft. So let's get that going. And actually, let's go ahead and get the auto crafting started for those. So last episode, we taught the auto crafting recipes for a couple of things. If we take a look at Reborn Storage, you'll see we have quite a few. I think I'm going to go... we're going to have 27 available slots. I don't remember if the whole thing has to be filled, so I might test that really quickly with one of each of these. But you will need, at the very least, if you make the smallest structure possible, that would be a 3x3, right? So, a 3x4x3. So 3 blocks wide, 3 blocks deep, but 4 blocks tall. So that looks like it's going to take a little while. So let's finish building this out. As I do that, you'll see basically the entire process here. We're short on heat sinks here. Okay. How short? 9. We're going to need 9 more heat conductors as well. Totally doable. Let's just go ahead and get that crafting up as well. I'm not really sure what the holdup is at the moment, but we can go take a look using our handy-dandy crafting monitor, because that guy is super duper helpful. So let's see. We are currently waiting on just the whole silicon process. That makes sense. I think silicon's going to definitely be our bottleneck. And I never did get around to making those upgrades, so I do still need to do that. While we wait, I'll go ahead and tear down our blast furnace, because we do not need it anymore. We can just use our arc furnace full time now, so we may as well. Let's go ahead and just vein mine all of that out. Break that unnecessary connection. And I'll even start to clean up some of this around here. Just like so. And so now we should just need some dirt, and we should be good. Maybe some more layered tuff. I think we'll be missing a couple of pieces at the least. Alright, there we go. So that opens up this entire area for us, which is always quite a nice little prospect. I don't know. I like having extra space cleared up. And so the reason I tore that down, in case you weren't following from what I mentioned last episode, the blast furnace is used for one thing and one thing only. Well, let me show you the actual blast brick recipe. Okay. Yeah, there's not really an easy way to look up the uses for the machine of the blast furnace unless you do this and then go to the blast furnace tab and look at the uses. Regardless, steel ingots can be made like so. You see, so you have some fuel, and then you have your slag output and steel output. But if we do the same thing in the arc furnace, there is no need for fuel, so we can just use coke dust directly, which we would make in the crusher. So we can kind of, skip a couple of processes here, use the crusher to make coke dust, and then put coke dust and iron straight into here and save ourselves some time. We do not have any extra coke. From what I remember, though, we do have our pyrolyzer. Yeah, this guy here can do it for us. So the pyrolyzer would be able to get ourselves the necessary coke dust. And something like that would be pretty straightforward, honestly. Would not be too terrible to get set up in the long run. Let's go ahead and get 2 pieces of hempcrete made up real quick. Alright, I'm still waiting on a couple more heat conductors, but I do at least have my crafting CPU and my crafting storage. So there we go. That's not only a quest, but also just good progress to have made in the first place. At the moment, I don't know. Let's wait for that one last one, and then we'll test and see if this will work. So we will need... Actually, we're still going to need 2 more, but that's okay. Let me go ahead and destroy these. Patterns galore, I know, but we also saw this coming. So we'll break those. We'll break this cable here. We just need the one. And if I put these here, then a CPU and a storage. And then we'll just need our 2 heat conductors again. Right, I destroyed my crafters. That was not my most intelligent move. Should have waited until that was done crafting. That said, it's also not really all that big of a deal. There we go. 2 more heat conductors made. If I put this together, it says it's not a valid block for the machine's interior. This is what I was afraid of. Not a big deal here. I just thought it would be less of a pain. I seem to recall it being kind of a pain. Let's make sure. So it's saying that negative 106. So if I put up my F3 screen, if we look at the right here where it says targeted block, let's go to negative 106. Negative 106 is outside of the bounds of this machine. You know, I do remember a bug that was reported. I wonder if it still exists where you have to completely reload your save. Let me do that really quickly. Okay, so I reloaded my world. You can see that because my suit's still initializing. And it's now at least... Now it is at least giving me a valid coordinate, one that would be inside of our machine here. So that's okay. We'll definitely need to occupy this completely with crafting CPUs and crafting storage. I personally prioritize CPUs over storage. I think having to wait on CPU crafting is the worst. So I'm going to make crafting CPUs. Let's go ahead and make... we'll need... Do we want to do 17 so that we have 18 in total? Or do we want to do 13 and then 12? And then that would be 27. Let's do that. Oh, we will be out of quartz in doing that. That's embarrassing. Okay, well, I'm going to go on a quartz run then. Shoot, I didn't realize I was already out of quartz, but we have been flying through it. Yikes. Okay, well, be right back. So apparently, I never did teach my system how to craft crafters, but I'm going to do exactly that, and I have a couple of things that I'm going to tell it to do, or that we're going to work on getting done today, while we craft other stuff, because we have a lot on our menu right now. So let's go ahead and get these crafting up. In the meantime, I did just get back from another run. You can see we've now got 2.8 thousand quartz. That should be enough for now, maybe, hopefully. And something that Elder Sign brought up to me that I remembered it differently, and when they brought it up, it helped me remember sort of a little bit more correctly, was that you can remove and rename the crafters themselves directly. So I misremembered. I thought it was that you could rename the inventories that the crafters were connected to. But what it is, in fact, is that you can rename the crafters themselves. And it used to be both, I think, or maybe just one. I know that at one point I could rename the inventory and that would work. It no longer works that way. But that's all right. We're going to rename this guy IE Crusher. And so now, the purpose of this is that if I hook this here, of course, ideally, you know, facing the right way, I think this fella here should be able to do the job. Maybe. And if not you, then definitely you. There we go. In theory, by doing that, and yeah, I know I just left a hole behind, big deal. If I come back over here and look through my crafter manager, we should see, there it is, IE crusher. And so now we know as we start to propagate these, what all is going on here, what's happening, etc. So gold barrel, that's our furnace input. We have the same issue there, so we'll go ahead and change that one up as well. I believe the crafter for you is like right here. Yeah, there we go. So I'll go ahead and take that as well. And we can call that furnaces, or just furnaces, or smelting factory, I think would work just fine. Doesn't particularly matter all that much. Then we can come back over here and hook that back up again. Of course, making sure it faces the right way. We will go through and clean this up, of course, as well. Like so. And so now, as we go through our crafter manager, we should start to see our various machines. Our smelting factory shows up here. I forgot to put the recipes back in there, so we will have to do that. So we've got those there. You can see all of our recipes for our machines will now start to come up in a more organized way. So you can see the pulverizer versus the crusher. We'll know exactly the differences as we go through this. Currently, are we waiting on anything? No. So we should have 4 crafters. Perfect. So let's go ahead and start getting the reborn storage CPUs. We said we were going to do 13 CPUs and 12 of the storages. So let's just get all of those going in bulk. And while that goes, I'm going to make some entangled blocks, and we're going to get some auto crafting wrapped up for a couple more machines. Let's go ahead and grab a dimensional storage again. I know I'm probably overusing these a little bit, but I think that they're just too convenient not to. I'm afraid that that might take a ridiculously long time. I guess we'll find out, huh? I've also actually got, I've got a couple of these laboratory furnaces still. You can always use these, and then when you put them down, if you put the external heaters in these slots, they will cook quicker. So if that's not done yet, which it isn't, let's grab 30 pieces of sand. That'll be relatively quick. And let's grab some coal. Let's go back to that sand. I should have grabbed 32. And now we should be able to smelt decently quickly. Oh yeah, that is quite nice. Apparently, you had stored up a bunch of XP in you from when I was using you before. A bunch of XP. Wait, why is that giving me so much XP? That's giving me a ridiculous amount of XP. Something's wrong here. Huh. Okay. Anyways, let's get a piece of Enderium. I'm going to ignore how much XP I'm getting from that device there. So we'll get a dimensional chest, and we're going to need 4 entangled blocks. So let's grab those. Should probably get those on autocraft. And let's grab 4... You know, I'm gonna try to avoid this. Let's see how that'll work. Let's grab cables, and we'll just see how this goes. So what I'm gonna be automating at this time is our metal press setup here. So this guy over here is perfectly fine, nothing wrong with it at all, but it can be automated, so why not? Let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. Not much here will be changing. The only thing that really is changing is just getting a dimensional chest put down right here, and of course marking it as private. And we're going to put all those extras away because we're not going to need them. And we'll need a little support block there because OCD. Now, what I'm hoping, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to tear out these 3 blocks underneath because it'll look better that way. We'll have like these little bevels or outlines. But what I'm really hoping is that if and I'm about to test this, right? If I take a hopper... right? Any hopper will do. And I take a piece of iron, for example, because we have tons of it. And if I tell my system here this block right here, which is part of the metal press, but you can see it's also its own block. If I bind you to you, holy, that render is enormous. Is there a way to turn off the render on just one block? That may become troublesome. If I put you here, that's what I wanted to see. I'll turn that magnet off. Outstanding. Okay, so that does work in theory, and should be just fine in practice as well. Follow-up question is, does this work for some reason? No, okay, I didn't think it would. There was no real reason that it should. I was just curious more than anything if it by chance did. Okay, so what I think we'll do is the following. We're going to take crafters here. And actually, we're going to rename these. So let's do that. We will have metal press plates, metal press wires, metal press gears, and then metal press rods. So with each of these pre-named, we'll be good to go. This is our gear mechanism, right? So we'll go ahead and do. Well, I don't want this to be able to be seen through the world, so I guess we're gonna have to drop this down a block or over a block. I don't really know. Down and over would also work, I suppose. Though I do think that down and over like so would probably be the easiest for... Well, no, I guess not, huh? The setup here at the end is going to be the exception to the rule. It's going to be a little frustrating to get wired up here, because this one is kind of in the way. Unless... Oh, you know what we could do? We could make this a little more symmetrical. I'm a little overly concerned about the symmetry, to be fair. But let's do this. Let's go ahead and clear out all of this space here. We'll do you, you. Oh, right, further. One block further. So we will have you, 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 and you. We will bind you there, you there, you there. Again, I'm hoping that these renders here don't cause me a lot of problems. If you find that they do, and I may go ahead and do this anyway, you can go to Entangled Properties here. If you go to the folder, you can go through and change the settings on your own. I'm not really sure why Entangled doesn't have a common, but we can always do like false to the rotation of the rendered block and then change up a couple of settings as we go. But now you can see where this is going, I hope. So if we look at the plates, we'll put that there. Rods will go here. Gears will go here. Wires will go here. We will rotate all of these once. And we will do wires in between. And so in theory now, we should be able to not only do crafting for plates and stuff, but see them as well. So let's come over here and just make sure that that's going to work. Let's do iron plate recipes. So let's grab one of these, and I'm just going to use this recipe here. The recipe we're technically following is this one, but if I click this in, it's going to want to bring in the metal press mold, and we don't need to give it that. It's going to be provided already, so we can either shift click it to get rid of it or just choose a different recipe that does the same result. Come over here, you'll see all the metal presses. So we're going to go to the metal presses for plates. That seems to be working really nicely. And now, how are you doing? You're doing okay. Machine doesn't accept the item. Is it because you're full? Yeah, it's because you're full. Okay. And so now if we come over here, I just want to test. If I request 32 plates. That's just going to work. That is so very nice. And I've noticed that immersive engineering sounds have been a little bit off in the last few updates. I hope nothing major is going on here, but I do know that they've just been a little off, I've noticed. So I'm hopeful that we don't run into any issues in the long term. But if they do, they do. We'll see. But you can hear every now and then it'll cull one of the sounds a little bit weirdly, and that's just a little bit concerning. We'll do that. I know it's not supported underneath. I know that's probably a little weird for many, so I could probably go grab a different tough block to do that with. We have a lot of them anyways, so maybe we do just grab the smooth tough. Oh, I need to switch you over to silk touch as well. I was using fortune to grab all of that quartz. But yeah, if we do smooth tough here, that should help with the OCD. There we go. And so now our crafting for our plates should be done. We've got our 30 plates. Everything seems to be working out pretty nicely. And everything's nice and automated. I think that's pretty cool. All right, well, I've got a lot of time to just sit around and wait, so I may do a couple other little bits and bobs of cleanup, but I think for the most part, I am good to go. I have a couple of questions about where things came from. I have a lever I don't remember having, which concerns me a little bit. And then I also have a slot missing. Oh, that was my empty buckets. Okay, I know what those were for. Okay, so... Oh yeah, okay, so that went there. That's always been empty. Cool. Weird, but cool. Anyways, so at this point, there is basically not much else that I can do until we get everything done. So I'm just going to sit around and wait, maybe clean up a couple of things. But there we have it. That was pretty easy automation. I think that was pretty straightforward to get those guys automated. I'm pretty happy with that setup. It's nice and clean, nice and properly labeled. Makes me very happy to see stuff like that going on. Alright, it has been quite a while, but we finally have everything we need to get our Reborn Storage Crafter put together, which will be quite a bit of energetical stress on our network, but I think we'll be okay. And if we're not, we'll figure it out, but hopefully we are. Anyways, we'll have, like I said, 12 crafting storage. As mentioned, I don't tend to prioritize... Did I say 12? I meant 13. I don't tend to prioritize storage of my automated crafting recipes because I don't do that super often. I definitely want my recipes to just be done quickly. So that should work. And there we go. We have a multi-block crafter with 13 pages of recipes that we can go through and look at. And so if we're holding down shift while going through these pages, we will be able to skip pages pretty quickly. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm probably not going to come down here and come look at this thing at all, ever. Maybe once or twice, but not often in general. What I will more likely do than anything else is I will more than likely go through and configure this guy and reorder things in the recipes through the crafter manager, because you can do that and it looks a lot better to me when I have everything in one place organized than here where it is technically in one place, sure, but not all of my machine crafting recipes are. So if we scroll down here, you'll see we now have tons and tons and tons of pages of recipes, but then like this weird block where we just kind of put ours down because the order in which the number of slots show up is kind of out of order. So what I tend to do is organize my crafting recipes in some sort of way that tends to work. So what I will do again, you can't really search by machine, unfortunately. That's not that big of a deal, though. I'd much prefer to be able to search by the item of the recipe that I'm looking for than vice versa. So I much prefer the way it is currently laid out. But sometimes I do wish that I could more easily manage my recipes and minimize what I'm looking at a little bit. On that note, it does look to be the case that I cannot shift click items in. I will have to manually place them in. Not a big deal, but I'm just going to sit here and do that because that is not at all an interesting process to watch. And I will be back in just a little bit because, again, this is about as boring as watching paint dry. Watching me figure out how I like to sort things is not what I consider interesting or quality content. So I'll be back in just a bit. Alright, so I've been doing some work, some basement work, some other stuff, and I've got two other things planned for this episode before we wrap it up. I don't really care too much about how long they go for. I cleaned up this little area in here, put a little wall barrier, something here, just to make this feel a little bit better. However, I'm actually really struggling with how little space we have in here. I think I underpredicted just how big 5x5x5 would look in a, what is that, 9x7 room. So yeah, I may end up having to resize this. In fact, I most certainly am. In moving that and kind of cleaning some stuff up, I moved the terminals up, or the fake terminals, the aesthetic terminals and server racks up over there. I replaced these with normal doors, and we have our crafting grid over here for now. There are a couple of things that I've been working on. One of them is that I went ahead and got all of the raw ore, except for one, set up and ready to go, so we can see that everything is here. To keep things really simple, there are 9 in total, and I have 8 of those 9. Currently, it's dealing with a shortage in bauxite, like usual. That's sort of not a surprise to anyone who's been playing this pack. Bauxite is one of the most uncommon resources to get a hold of, and that's mostly by design. It's also one of the least used resources in this pack, at least, so it's not something that we really use a lot. Anyways, I'd like to get an exporter because I'd like to have this guy set up to export all of our items from our network that are any of these 9 raw ores that I have in my inventory currently into our chute here. And we can really, really easily set that up. So all we have to do is grab the exporter we requested and just put it down up against our chute. And we will just hook it up to say, go ahead and put iron. Hello? Iron? Why aren't you exporting iron? Or are you? You say you're drained, is that true? Interesting. That might be my fault, actually. Okay, one sec. All right, this is the problem. I think I mentioned just a little bit ago that I was missing a lever. That lever came from right here. I accidentally broke it earlier, so I put them directly on the sides of the external heaters, so that way they'll only ever come off whenever I specifically take off the heater. And this is our missing connection here. So now, hopefully, if I just kind of crawl my way on out here, we should see... Yay, you're running. You're going to be exporting a bunch of stuff that I picked up earlier, too, that I thought had been voided due to... Or not voided, but lost due to a recipe conflict. It turns out it was not. If you're curious what that recipe conflict is, if you look at any of the whole ore blocks and you look at their uses, you'll see that they have 2 recipes here. And I just figured, oh, maybe the conflict between having 2 of them caused IE to say, no, you don't get anything. And that will be a fix. The 2 different recipes will be fixed in the next patch anyway. But I wasn't really sure what was going on, and now I know that it was just plain out of power. Very simple problem to fix. I'm just cleaning up after myself here a little bit, filling in any holes, because old paranoia from the olden days, wanting to make sure I don't have skeletons or creepers hiding out in my basements or whatever, in my little cable holes as well, because that used to be a really big concern, and I'm still a little bit traumatized by that. Anyways, so it looks like we are finally going to start be able to process those things. I was wondering, I knew I was supposed to have a bunch of different kinds of dusts in here, and I was, again, really confused. Anyways, we can continue to put these other things in here, so I can go ahead and do copper, gold. I'm actually going to be really weird. Copper, tin, silver, lead, and then we'll have nickel, zinc, and then one more slot here for bauxite. And so anytime we need to add to that list, we'll just do that. And you may be wondering, well, what happens when that list fills up? Good question. Good question. We'll have to put another exporter on another side. Fortunately, with all of the abilities that we have with our entangled blocks, we can just kind of continue to fudge it and make as many sides to a block as we want so we can just kind of keep on working it out and it'll be just fine. Anyways, now that we've got that configured, there is one last thing that I want to get done in this episode. It's kind of a big one, and it has to do with this, but this isn't going to be part of the episode. I'll just do this off camera. But in order to do this, this would be made a lot easier with a certain device, and that would be wireless networking. Not only is this another quest in the quest line here, but this is also one of the bigger ones. This is a very important one, in my opinion, because this actually unlocks a lot of the accessibility and convenience of refined storage for you to use basically at any time. So I'm a big fan of getting wireless set up. I don't think I've ever moved this quickly through refined storage. You guys know that I tend to sort of take my time as I play through, but honestly, refined storage is so much fun that I don't feel like waiting this time around. So I think we're just going to jump right into it with a wireless transmitter. That wireless transmitter is going to have to go somewhere, so I'm just going to plop it down there for now. It doesn't look super great, and we'll put it somewhere else eventually. By the way, we're doing just fine on disk storage, and I wanted to check energy usage is currently 340 RF per tick, and most of that is coming from our multi-block crafter here. You can see there's 5 FE a tick for the 14, so it's 5 FE per, I believe, and then 10 FE per, so that's 130, and then that is... Oh, dang. 130 is a lot, actually. Wow. And then that's like, what, 70? What else do we have? Nothing for the frames, nothing for the heat conductors. So yeah, we're getting a little bit expensive on the energy usage. The importer that we have importing everything is also taking up a lot just on its own. And that's you know, on its own as well. Each one of our little grids and managers, they're going to take 4 to 8. Not a huge deal there. But we are actually going to start going through some of our flux, so I'm glad we have buffers in place because that's going to be very helpful. Now, we have our wireless transmitter, but the transmitter has to receive somewhere, right? And by the way, I'm just really quickly checking to keep tally on how much we're producing over here because I'm starting to get a little concerned. Okay, so 180, 360, 720, 1080. We're good. We're good. We're producing 1,000 flux per tick. Using 300 is not even a drop in the bucket so far. Soon, though, we will be working on getting better flux creation than that, because that system has been doing really well for us, but there's a couple of systems that I have never even explored before that I really want to get into. Anyways, to use our wireless transmitter here, we are going to need a wireless grid, we're going to need range upgrades, and we could even upgrade this guy to the advanced wireless transmitter. I think that might not be too terrible, actually. It uses 1 netherite ingot. That is the only recipe that I know of that really uses the super advanced processors. These guys are not used super duper often. Just 2 little things here, and only one of them is particularly important or urgent at the moment. So let's go ahead and get that, and I will wait for that to craft up. That way we can kind of get some good and important resources going for the remote here. I'm stuck. I see. All right, so super advanced processor done. So now we have everything we need. We just got to go back and get our controller finished up, or sorry, our words. We've got to get our receiver over here, transmitter, mind you, upgraded. So we'll go ahead and do that. Come on, work with me, JEI. So you can see you can dye it half a dozen different colors. Oh, we were missing some items after all. No worries though. And while we work towards that, there's the advanced wireless transmitter. The benefit here, the old wireless transmitter didn't use that much flux. This one's going to use a significant amount more. You can see it is now using 100 FE per tick. That's pretty significant. And it's going to have a range of 1,000 blocks. That is the biggest thing, and you can upgrade that range by a pretty significant amount as well. Let's go ahead and look at the refined crafting grid, wireless crafting grid here. So this guy would be very, very handy. Let's go ahead and get ourselves a crafting grid. And we're also going to need all of those things, so we'll get those on their way as well. All right, so we should be good to make ourselves a crafting grid, and then to turn it wireless is just as simple as that. Now, you'll see it has an FE requirement, 3200 FE to be exact, and you know we already previously set up our automatic FE recharging station, so that should fill up on its own. There you go. Now, the last thing we've got to do is to bind it to a network. We have to shift right click on our controller. And when we do, we can now access our entire grid. And if I go to my keybind here, I've got it set to G for the super wireless grid, which is a different thing that we'll get to eventually. But if I look for grid, let's see, open wireless crafting grid, we'll do G. G will now open our grid anytime we have it. And you can see that there is a grid slot here specifically for it. So you can just put it in as a curio, hit G anytime you want to access it, and there you go. I don't know if it's going to charge our curio. Kind of looks like it is. Let's take some items out and see if that's... Yeah, it's still charged. Well, that's excellent. I didn't know that the aerial interface could do that. That might remove my need for Flux networks for a little bit. But I think that's going to wrap it up this episode because we have gotten a ton done. However, having access to our grid in full force like that means that we can do auto crafting on the go. And this has a 1,000 block range. So if we go all the way over here to the villagers that I've been trading with, and I get halfway there and I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot to grab, you know, something important. So if I'm like, ah, crud, I need to get emeralds. Well, look at that. I can just grab my emeralds while I'm here. Sort of has a ridiculously long range on it, so it wouldn't be unreasonable to do that. All those crops look so satisfying, having them be fully grown. This is where these villagers have gotten to. So yeah, it is super convenient to have that 1,000 block range. 1,000 blocks is pretty dang far. So I've got to admit that'll be pretty good. Not nearly as helpful as the dimensional tablet, because this is not cross-dimensional. So the dimensional tablet will be very helpful, and there isn't any way to get cross-dimensional refined storage access as far as I'm aware. But yeah, so anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, enjoyed all the fun stuff that we did. And in the next one, we're going to get away from refined storage for a little bit because we've been doing a lot in that realm. And now that we've got the auto crafting done, now that we've got a lot of the sort of more annoying and advanced components handled, I think we're going to start to get into some of the more fun stuff. Like I said, better power generation is definitely number one on my list right now because we are now sucking down 400 RF per tick just on our network alone. And what I may end up having to do is see about possibly... I think we'll be okay as long as we don't do anything major. All of our big network buffers, all of our big energy buffers, I should say, should be really helpful. But we may have to come up with like a shut-off switch for that for a little while as well, which you absolutely can do. Most of the refined storage components can be redstone controlled, so we can always do something to sort of turn that off whenever we don't need it or whenever we're not currently doing actively, anything that's going to put us away from our base. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and again, I'll see you in the next one. See you then.